Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome from London to this Monday's Viking.TV presentation and showing of Verdi's Un ballo in Maschera from London's Opera Holland Park. I'm Rodula Gaitanou. I'm an opera director working internationally, and this is my stunning colleague,
Alison Langer, a soprano working internationally. I'm sure you're all familiar with the name of Verdi, even if you're not an opera fan. I'll hum a few tunes for you. Da 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 da. Ba 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 da 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 da. His tunes have graced the soundtracks of popular movies, advertising, weddings and funerals.
Verdi was the son of illiterate peasants who ran the local tavern and grocery store. He was born on the 10th of October of 1813 in Le Roncole, a village about 3 miles from the small town of Busseto in the Duchy of Parma. His beginnings were very humble and his childhood was hard, as he himself attested in later life. And yet he went on to become the most popular opera composer of his century. Across a career that spans more than 60 years, he won international fame, becoming the venerated and often decorated grand old man of Italy, Il Gran Vegliardo.
He revolutionized the operatic practice, shifting the focus from the glorification of the singers to the glorification of the drama. Setting his stamp on 2 generations of performers, he transformed opera from being a showcase for the prima donna and celebrated tenors into serious theatre for singing actors. This resulted in very powerful pieces where the drama is dense, complex and truly breathtaking, and where music exists for the text and the text for the music. He also shook up the operatic practice and production of his time, putting at the heart of it its creators, the composer and the librettist, or the writer of the text. He exercised absolute control in every aspect of production, overthrowing the ever-mighty impresarios of his time.
A patriot, Verdi was twice elected to political office and was honoured as senator for life. We shouldn't forget that Italy and the countryside Verdi grew up in was continually fought over by France and Austria. The United Kingdom of Italy did not exist then, and the various small kingdoms and dukedoms were at the mercy of the belligerent European powers. His name became a symbol of the unification of Italy under the acronym Viva Verdi, which was shouted down the streets as a rallying cry and a political vision for Italian patriots. Verdi standing for Vittorio Emanuele, Re d'Italia.
At his death in 1901, he left behind a legacy of landmark works, the most popular of which are La Traviata, Rigoletto, Aida, Il Trovatore, Otello, Macbeth and Falstaff. His art has remained as accessible and popular as it was during his lifetime, his major operas constituting the backbone of today's standard repertoire.
3 of his homes and the home of Antonio Barezzi, his patron and father-in-law, are open to the public as museums. These are Villa Verdi in Sant'Agata, his natal house in Le Roncole, and his house in Busseto, all in a 10-kilometer area in Parma, in the region of Emilia-Romagna, in the north of Italy. And if you have the opportunity to visit, Parma is one of the most attractive regions of Italy, full of culture, wonderful foods, and inspiring landscapes. Verdi carried opera to unsurpassed and hardly equaled heights. His music and the drama it conveys possess a vitality which is directly comprehensive by any human being. Verdi as a person had the humanity in himself, informing his characters with an individual power that is inherently at odds with any overly rigid system of thought. In other words, Verdi's art confers a magnificent level of dignity upon the individual, on stage to be sure, but also by extension to the audience.
The piece which we are presenting to you today is his opera Un ballo in Maschera, or The Masked Ball. With a libretto by Antonio Somma, it premiered in the Teatro Apollo in Rome in 1859. Love, power and politics collide in Un ballo in Maschera. King Gustavo adores Emilia, but when her husband Ankerström discovers their love affair, he plots against the king, leading to murder on the dance floor.
The story is based on a historical event that dates back to 1792, the real-life assassination of King Gustav III of Sweden, who was shot at a masked ball held at the beautiful opera house he had built in Stockholm. He was an eccentric king and a great patron of the arts, a monarch who still fascinates the Swedish people today. The assassin was a Count Ankerström, something of a religious fanatic who shot the king at close range using rusted bullets to ensure death by blood poisoning, if not by gunfire. I mean, what a nasty piece of work. The story appeared in different versions in plays, ballets, and even 2 operas. Verdi's version is based on a play by French playwright Eugene Scribe, in which he added the intrigue of an affair with Countess Ankerström. Scribe changed the shooting to knifing and created the idea of the love triangle, making Ankerström the king's confidant, best man, and consigliere. Verdi immediately spotted how this plot was game for opera. I mean, an eccentric king involved in a love triangle against a backdrop of political intrigue, what could be best? And he recommended the play to Antonio Somma, who produced the text to be set to music. Verdi completed the opera and contracted for its performance at the Teatro San Carlo in Naples. But when the composer arrived in Naples, he discovered that the censors were insisting on a stunning array of changes. The king had to be a nobleman. An assassination could not take place. The lady in question shouldn't be named Amelia, but she should be named Adelia. There was not to be a fortune teller. The setting of the story had to be somewhere far away, and the time should be just before Christmas. Insane demands that made no sense. Thankfully, Verdi stood his grounds and refused to oblige the censor. He was considered in breach of contract and was in serious danger of facing jail. Then the most extraordinary thing happened. The censors in Rome, and remember Italy was under regional authorities, approved the libretto as it was. There was no king, you see, to offend in Rome. But there was one wish. The story had to be set somewhere remotely, like, say, in a different continent. Somma suggested to Verdi to set it in colonial America, where the king could be rethought as a governor and all the other elements could remain intact. The opera, set in colonial Boston with different character names but otherwise intact, was presented in Rome and was an instant success. Verdi's ability to snatch triumph from such a near disaster is a testament to his resilience as a man of the theatre. And indeed, what a masterpiece it is. With a foot in comedy and a foot in tragedy, it's a bit about the power of love and the power of betrayal. The 5 main roles are very gratifying for the singers, and there are 2 vocal rarities for Verdi. Madame Arvidsson, a role for a contralto singer with luscious, plummy solos, and the glittering Oscar, a role written for a lyric coloratura, a female singer portraying a male character.
The extract that we bring you today is the end of the first scene going into the second scene of Act 1 and highlights exactly these 2 parts. The priest has just asked the king to sign an order of banishment for the fortune teller, Madame Arvidsson. The king asks Oscar, his page, if he knows anything about her. He recounts the witch's hokey effects, praising her as a very entertaining fraud. King Gustavo is amused and wants to witness her prophecies in person. He calls back his court, inviting them to join him in disguise at Madame Arvidsson's salon. While Ankerström, his counsellor, warns him against the dangers of such a decision, Oscar and the king are thrilled at the charade. They all agree to meet at the fortune teller's at 3 o'clock. At Madame Arvidsson's, the crowd has gathered. A soldier named Cristiano approaches her. He wants to know whether he's going to get a promotion after years in the service of the king. Gustavo, in disguise, slips in a note that gives him an advancement and money. Arvidsson foretells money and a promotion, and just after that, Cristiano finds the note. The crowd cheers in amazement. Amelia's driver requests a private session for his mistress, an important lady. Madame Arvidsson orders everyone out, but Gustavo, who recognises Amelia's employee, hides and remains present. Amelia, the wife of Ankerström and lover of the king, has come to seek help. She asks for a cure to calm her overwhelming feeling of love and sense of guilt. Arvidsson suggests a certain drug to be found in a dangerous place. She must be there by midnight, as it's the only time she'll be able to find it. Amelia leaves as Gustavo promises to himself to go and surprise her there. The crowd re-enters and is now swelled with courtiers and conspirators in disguise. The king tells to Oscar not to betray his identity and to test Madame Arvidsson's fortune-telling talents, presents himself as a fisherman singing about his life. Arvidsson is not fooled and asks to read his hand. She reveals that this is the hand of a great man, and as the king presses her to reveal more, she predicts that he is going to be assassinated by the hand of a friend, the next person who walks in the room. Everyone is astounded as Ankerström walks in. Gustavo is amused and reveals his identity.
The extract offers the opportunity to appreciate the alternance of private to public, from a 2 or 3 person scene to a big crowd scene, and to witness the mastery of the composer writing for big ensembles. Notice how he creates climaxes and how he allows the individual voices and ideas to shine in a big ensemble. This production comes to you from London's finest summer opera festival, Opera Holland Park. It's the jewel in the crown of the summer operatic scene in the capital, an urban venue in the heart of one of London's most beautiful parks that offers a unique experience both for artists and for audiences. James Clatton, the director of Opera Holland Park, produces a festival that brings to life classic repertoire pieces along with rarities and engages the creme de la creme of singers and creatives. You can check the company and its varied digital content online at www.operahollandpark.com. This is a show we created back in 2019, and it is directed by me, with costume and set design by Takis, lighting design by Simon Corder, and choreography by Stephen Laias. The City of London Sinfonia is conducted by Matthew Coffey Waldron and the Opera Holland Park Chorus by chorus master Richard Hacker. The Italian tenor Matteo Lippi sings King Gustavo, the French soprano Anne-Sophie Dupresne is Amelia, the British baritone George von Bergen is Ankerström, the superb Alison Langer is Oscar, the legendary Rosalind Plowright is Madame Arvidsson, in the role of Cristiano is Rosa Rambogin, and ribbing and horn, the 2 conspirators, are Benjamin Bevan and John Savoni. The priest is Ian Massa-Harris, and Amelia's driver is Mike Bradley. We decided to use the Swedish version, and we set the action in the late 1930s somewhere in Scandinavia, trying to recreate the feeling of a film noir for this story of dark passions and quirky comedy. It's available to view in full at Vimeo On Demand. Now, let's have a look, and we'll see you later for the Q&A.
Quando alle belle tutti chiamate, guarda pro mio pensiere. Signori, oggi dar vizzon alla magion d'invito, ma sotto altro vestito io la sarò. A ver, si può gustar la scena, l'idea non è prudente.
La trovarsi eccellente, feconda di piacere.
Te ravvisar qualcuno e vi potria qualtena. E vedi tutto trema, vuole suo consigliere. E tu m'ha pronta un'abito da pescatore. Sa che la vendetta e l'alito non saprà vincolar. Ogni cura si dogna di letto e s'accorda nel magico detto, che alla folla ne crede ognuno, s'abbandoni folleggi con me. Se corma meglio sospero ognuno, credi che prendo in cor, s'abbandoni che come ignanimo me, folleggi non la paventa per sé.
La fina di dici che belle, sta ben che li chiedo che ch'io, se ti non si marina le sere che sto di vedere da me.
Ogni cura si dogna piacer, dunque signor, vi aspettovi, incogniti, alle tre. L'antro dell'oracolo, la gran maga al piede, la gran maga al piede. E s'accorre al fatidico te, sì. Per un dì si folleggi si scherzi, sì. Ma la vita più cara non è.
Villano dentro, villano dentro.
S'aperto il mio pago, son servo del Sile, son suo marinaro. La morte per esso più volte ho sfidato. La morte ho sfidato. 3 lustri son corsi per vivere amaro. 3 lustri che nulla si fatto per me. 3 lustri che nulla si fatto per me.
Richiedi
qual sorte pel sangue versato mi attende. Favella da franco soldato,
l'amore
prendete.
rallegrati amai in breve dell'ora e un grado t'avrai.
Scherzate?
Amado
Mentire non de. A questo presagio ben volsi mercè. A questo presagio ben volsi mercè. Gustavo al suo caro cristiano ufficiale per bacco e non sogno dell'oro per un ecco sull'uscio segreto un servo d'Amelia. Sentite, la mia signora che aspetta là fuori vorria pregarvi in segreto d'arcano parer. Amelia,
inoltre che tutti allontano
non me
perché possa rispondere a voi e dopo che annanzi m'abbocchi a statolo uscite e lasciate che io scruti nel ver che vagita così segreta cerimonia
che ascolto
e voi cercate oggi severo il vento e si votare
ascolto anima mia
l'oblio vedato arcani sedile conosco d'una magica erba che rinnovella il cuor macchina dopo spiccar la debbe di sua man nel fitto delle notti funareo il loco osate voi sì essa sia dunque ascoltate nella città la casa la quale tetro il lato abbia la luna carica sul campo abominato a barbicali sedani a quelle pietre infami ove la colpa sfantasi con l'ultimo sospir ove la colpa sfantasi con l'ultimo sospir mio Dio, qual loco! Attonita e già tremante siete.
povero cor
Ves anima! No, e noserete! Se tale torneo traver poco! Stanotte! Sì!
alle sue Giuseppe
We hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the whole movie in full, you can watch it on Vimeo on demand. For more information, you can look at www.operahollandpark.com.
And now we welcome Miriam Vergis, who is the assistant producer at Opera Holland Park, and is going to read out your questions. Hello, Miriam.
Thank you very much, Rodula. It's great to have you guys tuning in. So, first question I have is from Jonathan in Guildford, who says, most operas are traditionally staged in very grand and ornate opera houses. Does the outdoor setting of Opera Holland Park provide challenges for the set and production, or do you see this as an opportunity? Also, how is the sound affected in the outdoor setting? Apologies.
I think I might answer the first part of the question, and I leave the second part to Alison. Mm-hmm. Indeed, the Opera Holland Park stage is a very particular stage that presents very particular challenges, but I love a challenge so much. So it's an outdoor setting. It's a beautiful, beautiful stage. It's very wide, and I'd say that is the difficulty, if you want. Or once more, I mean, I love it that it's so wide, because then you can fit a really big group of people and create interesting choreography and interesting geography of movements. And the other big challenge is the lighting, because you can never get a full black if you want. But on the other hand, my very good colleague, Simon Corder, who has been the lighting designers in all of the shows I've done at Opera Holland Park, indeed won the Night of Illumination Award for a show that he did in this outdoor setting. We did a Queen of Spades a few years ago, and he won an award for this design. So yes, it presents challenges, but I think if you put your creative hat on, it also gives wonderful, wonderful results. And as for the acoustics,
yes.
Ali, what do you think?
Well, I when I first worked at Holland Park, which was when I was doing the Young Artist Programme, when I was Violetta for La Traviata, for your La Traviata, I was a little daunted because of how wide the stage was and thought there's going to be challenges, but it was a nice surprise when I got onto the stage at how wonderful the acoustic is. It really, you can hear everyone on stage, even when they're on the other side of you. And I suppose the only thing would be outside noise, but actually I think that adds to the drama and to the intensity of the piece. So if you're hearing things outdoors, sometimes you hear dogs barking, or you hear people having barbecues in Holland Park, or children playing football. It's just a lovely sense. You remember the outside world, and we're telling this amazing story inside. And I do remember at the end of La Traviata dying, being accompanied by a peacock, which was wonderful. So where else can you get that experience?
Yes, and I seem to remember it always happened at the same time every night, which is brilliant. Great, thanks guys. So our next question is from Sandra in Alexandria, Egypt. She says, as someone quite new to appreciating opera and who doesn't speak Italian, what are your tips for following along with the story?
Thank you, Sandra, for this question. First of all, I have to say that the modern presentation of opera always offers subtitles. So you have an immediate understanding of the text which is sung just by looking slightly up, and you catch the subtitles. I'm against any sort of preparation that anyone has to do before they go and watch a show. I think my job as a director is to guide you through the story, and also people should be free to experience have an emotional approach to the piece. I think this is very, very important. Most of the operatic stories, in any case, are quite simple. They're pretty straightforward. Sometimes yes, they are convoluted. There are a lot of people who are in disguise. Quite a lot of the stories refer to historical events that were very well known at the time that the operas were written, but they're not so familiar to us today. But I have to say that there is always, if you trust your instincts and if you go with an open heart, then you can take as much from the show and from the piece as anyone who is very well informed. So just go for it and watch for the subtitles.
Great answer. Thank you, Rodula. So next we have Benny from Louisiana, and I think I'll ask Ali for you to answer this first. He's very much looking forward to this whole event, and he loves opera, and he's asking, but can you tell us what the training and rehearsal process is like in the lead up to a big production?
Absolutely. Thank you for your question, Benny. Well, when you're learning a role, for example, I'll speak about Violetta. It's a huge role, so learning it sort of a week before wouldn't be possible. So you have to really, really plan in advance how you're going to learn this role. It's a role where she doesn't lead the stage. I think she leads the stage for 10 minutes. And so you need to build up your stamina. So you have to sing it in. So we take our roles to coaches, to singing teachers, to really make sure we're covering every single part of the role. There's a really challenging high note at the end of the first aria that Violetta has that I have to spend a lot of time working on because it's particularly high and particularly difficult. So I need to build my stamina. And actually an example of that is I've just recently had a baby 5 weeks ago, so I'm really learning to get all my stomach muscles back together again and learning how to produce those notes. And it's amazing what the voice can do, but you have to look after it. And when you have a rehearsal process, you come to the rehearsal knowing your music. You can't learn it on the job. There's simply not enough time, and also you would do damage to your vocal cords because you would be singing it so quickly and trying to cram it all in. So you go through the rehearsal process, and I've always found that once you put movement to the words or to the story, it really helps me remember the words. So that's how I memorize. It's all muscle memory, but you have to do that initial work beforehand. So yeah.
Brilliant. And Rodula, do you have some insight into this?
Well, the process for us, for the creatives, I have to say is very long. I mean, usually we get a commission for a show 2 or 3 years in advance. The first thing that I do is to have a listen. I listen to the music, not necessarily reading the story, so that I have an instinctive response to the music itself. And then it goes in stages. So first I listen to the music, then I read the libretto, then I put the two things together, then I start doing a big sort of historical research about the creation and the historical context of the piece, whether it's a story which is completely new, or does it refer to a historical event like the Gustav III assassination and the King Gustavo in Ballo and Maschera. And then there are things that give me ideas. I always find that I'm more drawn to a concept that resonates with something contemporary, even if the setting that I choose, the world that I choose, is not necessarily a contemporary world. But I want to bring the story and create parallels with the condition of humans today. And then after that, I work with fabulous colleagues, designers. I sort of I don't want to say choose, but the piece invites usually for a particular style, and each and every of the amazing colleagues I'm working with has a very personal style. So I'm trying to figure out who is the best fit for the piece. And once we have that, then we start working as a team. We come up with a concept, with a very concrete world. We share ideas, we brainstorm. We look at a lot of references, and the references can be anything. They can be movies, pictures, situations, things that you see down the street with people, you know, things that people do, or a smell. Anything can give you ideas. And then we finalize the concept and we bring it to the producer, in this case, the extraordinary James Cladden at Opera Holland Park. And he has a look, he likes it or he doesn't like it. We start discussing about budgets and how we are going to realize it, what are we going to need, what is a make, what is a rent, how we're going to source things, and then the rest of the team comes along, the assistant producers, the head of production, the technical manager, all this big team of people who is working on a project, and who are the invisible heroes. And about a year to 8 months before we start rehearsals, we start building the sets and we start making the costumes. And in a way, once we start rehearsals, everything from the production point of view is sort of finalized. There are really not many changes that we can do or we can have after the beginning of rehearsals. And once we start rehearsals, my main job is to, of course, inspire, give life to these ideas, but also inspire the performers and make them do their best in a way. For me, this is always very important. And then we work in the rehearsal room for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then eventually we go on stage. We have stage rehearsals where we rehearse on the set and in costume. And then my favorite moment of the process is when the orchestra comes, which is the sort of when you get a sense of the real deal, where you get this extraordinary sound hitting you and everyone is singing in full voice and the full drama is there, and it's wonderful. So yes, it's a very long process, and you've got, it's peculiar because you've got quite a long time to think about it, but once you've got something, that's it, this is fixed, and it's not very flexible in changes and so on. So yeah. Brilliant.
That was a great answer there. So next we have Kerry from Hackensack. This one is for Ali in particular. It must be very important for opera singers to maintain their voices and vocal cords. What measures do you take to keep your voices healthy?
Oh yes, that is a good question. What do you do? Well, you have to be really careful about your life choices. So I can't shout or scream very much at people, which is sometimes annoying when I want to shout and scream at people, because you have to, this is my bread and butter, this is where how I make my living. So it has to be tip-top condition all the time. So I drink a lot of water, probably not enough, as much as I should, tons of water, exercises, so vocal exercises to keep the stamina of your voice up, which is what I was talking about earlier, and also to keep my vocal range stretched. So I'm always making sure I'm singing in the high range because I'm a soprano, so I want to keep my high notes nice and fresh. And also, I suppose, alcohol, you shouldn't really drink too much of it, but, you know, we need to also have life. So it's all about making those sensible life choices and just keeping yourself as healthy as possible. So everything you eat, for example, you know, eating as healthy as you can. If you have a cold, you treat it straight away. So honey, lemon, and ginger is fantastic for your voice. So if you've got any kind of niggle in your throat, I make myself a little honey, lemon and ginger, sometimes with a bit of whiskey, I think is a hot toddy, isn't it? That can help to really sort of keep your vocal cords as healthy as possible. But it's mainly about rest and a healthy lifestyle.
Right. That's like a life lesson for everybody.
I follow all those rules.
So next we have one. I'm going to put two questions together as they're pretty similar. So we have, which are your very favourite operas of all time? I've seen Aida live once and would love to see another one day. That was from Nell in Newton. Sorry, that's the one question I'll go with. Apologies. I don't know who wants to go first. Rodula, would you like to? Your favourite operas?
It's a very good question and a very, very difficult question for me to answer, I have to say. I think my favourite opera is the opera I'm working on at the moment, the current opera I'm working. But if I could generalise, because in a way, even if you don't like so much the piece, you really need to fall in love with it to be able to discover its layers and its complexity and really penetrate the musical dramaturgy of it. But I'm very, very fond of Verdi. I like the big Italians, and I am a big fan of Verismo operas, so the Italian rep of the late 19th century. I also Mozart is my bread and butter. I mean, I think he's a master of everything. I think many singers will agree that it's fantastic for the voice and equally very difficult. And I have to say, from a musical dramaturgy point of view, it's fantastic for the brain and for the sense of drama. But yeah, I'd say the big Italian rep is where my heart is.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Ali?
Yeah, I would say exactly the same. All the Verismo operas. I think I have to say La Bohème, because it was the first opera I ever saw, and it made me fall in love with opera. It really did. And I sang Musetta in La Bohème, but my dream would be to sing Mimi. So I think if you have a role that you really want to sing, that kind of becomes your favourite opera. So La Traviata was my favourite for ages, and then I sang Violetta. So now it's La Bohème. So I'm hoping it will follow in that way.
Brilliant. We have Nancy from Leewood, moving on, who says, so do modern performances of ballo use the original libretto? It's not a question for you, Rodula, I think.
Yes, it's always the original libretto. Sometimes what we find is that we might change a few words, both in Italian and in the subtitles, because sometimes, you know, a libretto is a historical piece of writing, and some of the expressions used, and indeed there are some like that in ballo, they are a bit outdated, and we need to they might be offensive, for instance, or they might use expressions that we no longer, as a society in general, use. So we will change that with a light hand, and sometimes we might change the name of a place, for instance, to better fit our concepts. But it's never a whole phrase that it's changed, or a whole scene, or a whole. It's just individual words. And in this case, for instance, of ballo and Maschera, as we said earlier on, there are two versions. There is the so-called Swedish version and the so-called American version. And Verdi himself has a different set of character names for each one of the two. So in the American version, instead of, which is also the most popular, we didn't mention earlier, instead of Gustavo, we have King Ricardo. Or Governor Ricardo, better said. And instead of Amelia is Amelia, and Ancastron is Renato. Now, why would you have two male leads with Ricardo Renato is a mystery to me, to be honest with you. It becomes a bit of a tongue twister. But so it is. And Madame Advinson, of course, becomes Ulrika, which is the most popular name for this character. But yes, the changes are very minimal, and it's always the original libretto. Now, there are companies, like here in Britain, for instance, the English National Opera will always perform in English. And this is a whole different matter, because this is opera in translation. So they will, Un ballo in Maschera will be a masked ball, and the whole text will be translated in English. This is the case very often for national opera companies. And yeah, English National Opera, I mean, works in Italian or in German or in Russian or any other operatic language will be translated in English.
Great. Brilliant. So next we have one for Ali. He said, this is Wesley from Homer, who says, thank you, this was wonderful. How long does it take you to learn all the lines and to rehearse for a performance like ballo?
Oh, yes, good one. Well, so ballo is an interesting one because Oscar has got sort of, he has little pockets of where he appears. So I actually found that harder to learn. If you're learning one big chunk of music in a row, I actually find that a lot easier. So when it's all a little bit sporadic and all over the place, that can be quite tricky. I think as well, sometimes it depends on what language the opera is in. So if it's not in English, it takes just that bit longer to process in my brain anyway. So being in Italian, it took me longer. So I was rehearsing for and studying the role sort of in January, and we started rehearsals in May, I think. So I spend a long time because I really want to understand everything I'm saying. So I literally translate all the words. So I write all the English words underneath every Italian word so that I know exactly what word I'm singing. And actually, when you know what you're singing, it's so much easier to then absorb and memorize the words. But it does take a long time, especially to build up that stamina, as I was talking about earlier.
Great. So next we have, Giovanni. This is the question I was going to combine together. So Giovanni and Isaac both ask a similar question. How did you get into your professions? My daughter is interested in pursuing a career in the musical arts. That was from Giovanni, who also said it was an excellent performance. And Isaac said, what first attracted you guys to the profession? So yes, the same question to both of you.
Do you want me to say first? Well, I always say that my voice led me to this profession because I fought against it for ages because I wanted to do musical theatre so much and so badly. And I did do a lot of musical theatre. I trained, first of all, in my church choir, actually. I sang as a soprano for years and years and years in my church choir every Sunday. And then I joined my local Amdram Society, and we did all of the American musicals, and I fell in love with musicals, and I wanted to do it so much, but my voice, because of my classical training of being in a church choir, was just that bit more operatic. So it was very classical. So people would say to me, oh, you should train in opera, and I'd say, oh no, I'm doing musical theatre. But I found it so much harder because it requires a different style of singing. It's a lot more visceral. You really have to sing from your throat and from your voice, and you belt in musical theatre, which is a very, very different style to singing an operatic note. So it's the complete opposite of what I'm trained to do as an opera singer. So I couldn't belt. So therefore I had to, after I didn't start studying properly until I was 23 going on 24, because that's how long I fought against it. But actually having that life experience and that being that age helped me so much. It set me up so much better to really know that I wanted to be an opera singer. And then I went to see La Bohème, as I said, and I just fell in love with it and thought, if this is what opera singing is, okay, I'm game, I'll give it a go. and I'm really glad that I did.
Oh, that's so lovely.
And we are glad too, Alison.
Exactly, we named it. And Rodula, how about you?
My story is, I was in a way, I grew up in a musical family, so all the stimulation was there, and from a very early age my parents would take us to concerts and the opera and theatre, and it was all about the arts when I was a kid. And I remember being so fascinated by opera. I remember watching La Traviata and wearing my best frock, standing in front of the mirror and practicing the cough. I must have been like 7 or 8, but I was not. I mean, I have a musical background. I used to play the violin, but I was always interested in the drama, and I was interested in how to make the cough believable. Yeah, not not sing it, or but how do we make this believable? I always had this sort of oscillation between music and theatre, and of course opera combines both. And I found my way. I studied in Paris. There was a course of opera directing, and it felt like going home. So I embarked on that, and then yes, I never looked back. In a way, I feel that opera is in my DNA, if I can say that. I'm very at ease with the art form, and if there is just a piece of advice for children who are fascinated and parents who want to sort of encourage the interest, I think the best thing to do is to just go to the theatre. Go to the opera, see as many things as possible, go to concerts, see, watch shows, watch stuff online. We live in this last year has been really terrible for us professionals, but on the other hand, it has been extraordinary in terms of digital content and stuff that you can watch online. So watch as much stuff as possible. Basically, that would be my little piece of advice.
Great, but actually quite nicely leads on to a question from Danielle in Chicago, who says, how has the pandemic affected the arts overall? And do you think everything will bounce back once restrictions are lifted? Obviously, that's a very big question and an ongoing question. I know at Opera Holland Park, we're really just working with the times and everything as it comes. But from your perspectives, how do you both feel? Generally.
I went through it has been very varied, because at first, I mean, I've been working relentlessly for the last 17 years. So, the first kind of 3 months, it was a very welcome break where I could just be at home, which it was a luxury back then. But then things kind of settled in, and I felt this great sadness. There's a great, I'm not sure if society understands the function, the use, where the arts, what the arts do, what they offer to society, how much all of us need it. We take, I think, music and theatre and films and paintings and the visual arts and the performing arts for granted so much in a way. And there is a bit of a disregard for the artists. And I felt that, I have to say. But then things started picking up, and they were great people, like James Clatton, for instance, who have been someone who kept faith in the company, but also in the artists he employs, and he has been very, very encouraging, and led on the side a whole variety of activities that brought us all together to do things and create content online, or do workshops with young artists. And eventually we all became very flexible and adaptable, and exercised or acquired new skills. I just directed an opera, La Clemenza di Tito, for Bergen National Opera in Norway from my home in London. It was the last show that we were doing before the COVID-19 sort of shut all the theatres. But Norway, and it was rescheduled for a year after. Norway closed its borders. We couldn't go. We said, okay, let's do it online. And we did it. And it was amazing, I have to say. I mean, I was in a big screen in a rehearsal room in Bergen, Norway. And we put a show on. So one becomes very resourceful. Of course, you have to think out of the box. Whoever has this illusion that, you know, the practice hasn't changed, the practice is evolving. It's not changing, but it's evolving. And I sincerely hope, and I see this for myself, I mean, I think once we go back to people being able to go back to the theatre and, you know, rediscovering a sense of normality or some sort of normality, I think people will rush to the theatre because we've all missed it so much. It's this sort of communion, artistic communion, you know, there's nothing better than an auditorium filled with emotion. I think we've all missed it so much. Yes, it's great that we can watch something on our screens, you know, and content can reach people worldwide. But then this extraordinary feeling, particularly in opera, for instance, where we are all sitting in an auditorium and the orchestra has just tuned and the lights go down, and we are all witnessing the same special tension, I think, is irreplaceable. So we can't wait to welcome an audience back. We're doing, Alison and myself are doing La Traviata, a revival of our celebrated production from 2018 at Opera Holland Park this summer, and we can't wait to welcome an audience. I can't wait for this connection. I've just missed the audience so much.
Come back. Yes.
Come back.
Come back. We've got many performances this summer that we're hoping to do. So that's great. Ali, do you have like any?
Yeah, it was up and down for me.
Online,
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, you can sum it up.
Yeah, no, I was the same. I at the beginning it was very difficult because I was a week before about to make my debut at the Royal Opera House, so it was a real blow, you know, and then again I had some time off, which was actually wonderful. And I think that time off has actually probably been really beneficial to a lot of opera singers, because we can spend so much of our time working one job to the next and saying yes to everything because you feel you have to. So your life can be just going here, there and everywhere, and to have just some time of going, oh my goodness, I don't have to be anywhere, I can enjoy being with my husband and, you know, at home. It was wonderful. But then that wears off, the novelty wears off, because you realise, oh, well, I do this because I love that lifestyle. That's what I love. I love being on call and going everywhere and playing different characters all the time. That's just, you know, I don't want to be Ali Langer all the time. I want to be different people and to be on the stage and have that connection with an audience. So yes, it's high time we got back. But I was really lucky to be involved in some of the concerts that James Clutton put on, which were fantastic, because the moment I heard the string quartet play and just warming up, it made me cry, actually, because you don't realise how much you miss it until it's gone.
Definitely. I think we all feel that, definitely. So next, I'm just going to answer ask a few more questions, and we can try and get through. And we have Chad from Vancouver. He said, "What a stunning performance! How many other people are involved in the production on the staging, costume, production side?" I mean, I could answer that too, but Rodula, ballpark figures roughly. Like,
there is such a big team to create a live show. There are literally about 200 people working on the show, including the chorus and the orchestra. It's there's, I mean, the technical staff, stage management, technicians, wardrobe people, makeup artists, dressers, production people working in production, like Miriam. But there is also front of house staff, ushers, theatre managers. I mean, we, the creatives, are 4 or 5 every time. I mean, there's myself, the director, there's a set and costume designer, there's a lighting designer, there's a choreographer, but then there is an assistant director, there's an assistant conductor. Yeah, it's literally hundreds of people working for a live performance. And this is the beauty of it, I have to say. I just love a big team.
and a mix of characters, I guess, as well. Working with so many different characters as well, which is great.
So many different characters, but also what is extraordinary is that everyone is working towards the same goal. And I find this extraordinary, how so many people can tune in to putting the show on. And it's fantastic. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. So I just thought I'd create a little break in asking you questions, because we had a really nice comment from Poonam in Houston. He said, "You two make the opera a very enjoyable experience." And she's normally not too much of a fan, but by listening to you both and being swept is the joy you both are projecting just now. So I'm inclined to attend a few because of both of you. So I just thought I'd give you that little...
Thank you very much. That's a very kind thing to say.
Next, we've got a few more questions. I'll just try and get through them. Jerry says to Alison, "What other roles have you generally sung? Or maybe, let's say, could you pick your top 2 roles that you've ever sung?" And Rodula, your direction is superb. And maybe, Rodula, you could try and pick a favourite or 2 of your productions.
My favourite, sorry, Miriam?
Your favourite productions that you've directed, maybe 1 or 2. I know that's very tricky. And
So
Ali, the same, 1 or 2 of your favourite productions that you've sung for. Doesn't have to be opera, it could be anything in your careers, really.
Well, I think one of the top things, I mean, I can't really say a favourite because there are so many, but one of them was absolutely Violetta in the Traviata, because, I mean, it's the dream of role that every soprano wants to do. So I was so lucky that I've done it. But also I sang young Heidi at the National Theatre's production of Follies, and it was musical theatre, so I did get to do a bit of musical theatre, which was great. And I played an opera singer, and I got to duet with Dame Josephine Barstow in the first run, and then Dame Felicity Lott in the second run, and it was just the most amazing experience of my life. I think it was just on the Olivier stage, singing every night, and all these amazing dancers and actors. Yeah, that was a real sort of gem in my career so far. So yeah, they're my top 2.
Lovely.
I have to say, I do really feel, and I'm being honest about it, that each and every production is like a child. So it's like asking me which one is your favorite child. But I do have I have shows that I was very, very fond of while I was creating them, and I have such amazing memories. La Traviata is one of them, I have to say. It felt very, very special from the get-go. I still remember that studio run. There was so much emotion in the rehearsal room, and that felt really, really special. A William Tell I did in Australia for Victorian Opera. That once more, it was just the synergy of forces, you know, where you have an amazing cast and an amazing conductor, and everything kind of clicks together. And everyone sort of feels that what they have in hand is fantastic. And Ariadne av Naxos, a Strauss piece that I did in Gothenburg in Sweden, where I just fancied very much the sort of world that we created for this piece. And the latest one, this Clemenza di Tito, that we created via Teams, believe it or not, because it was so unusual. But once more, it felt like such an extraordinary achievement of the team. And I just, once more, I love, if I work for the people. And once more, the people were so focused on bringing this show to life. And I had an extraordinary conductor and cast, and yeah, it was a joy to be back doing what I do best. So yeah, I did manage to pick a favorite children, didn't I?
Yeah, so I'm conscious that we should probably just wrap up in a moment. So we have 2 questions. I don't want to miss one out. So let's put one to both of you each. So we have Gertrude, who says, from St. Simons Island, who says, have there been any funny disturbances in Holland Park when performing, or maybe even throughout the rehearsal process? Do you remember anything? And Daniel from Dallas, Texas says, could you just tell us what your favourite venues to watch opera are around the world other than Opera Holland Park? Just to say, I just remember chasing a dog around Opera Holland Park auditorium, just outside the auditorium, trying to make sure he didn't go into the auditorium during a performance. So that's entertaining. But yeah, if I get Rodula, do you want to say your favourite venues maybe? And Ali, if you've got any funny remembrances, that'd be great. And we'll call it a night after that.
I still remember we were doing The Queen of Spades by Tchaikovsky, and there is this extraordinary spectre scene where a ghost makes an appearance. It was a very windy, stormy night, and then suddenly the heavens open and it starts pouring with rain, and then we have this thunderstorm right on cue for the appearance of the ghost. I mean, I couldn't have asked for more, you know, natural sound effects to accompany the scene. It was fantastic, fantastic timing. Yeah, that is my most sort of strong memory of something unexpected at Opera Holland Park.
And Ali, so do you want to just end us off on what you the other venues around the world that you've managed that you feel are your favourite? If you can pick that.
That's a hard one. I haven't really been to many abroad, but I think the Opera House is always such an amazing venue to go and watch opera in. It's just from the way it looks, it's so grand, and the acoustics are amazing. You know, even up in the gods, I think actually that's probably the best place to hear the sound. It's a fantastic place. But you know, there are so many venues as well. There are loads of little amphitheatre places, like there's a new opera festival called Waterbury Opera Festival, and they've got an amazing amphitheatre that just creates this incredible atmosphere when you go and watch an opera there. So I think anywhere outdoors actually is probably my favourite. And I'm not just saying that because I'm not, but it does.
It's got everything.
I do remember chasing a squirrel around the auditorium of Opera Holland Park in a rehearsal once. So a lot of them are animal based, but
yes, I remember getting a lot of birds sitting on the chairs to have a listen to them. So it was lovely. Great, I think that's it for this evening, but I'll let you guys sign off. But just thank you on behalf of Opera Holland Park as well for coming back to join us, and everyone who's tuning in, thank you as well. And I'll leave it over to Rodula and Ali to say their byes as well.
Thank you for watching, and thank you for we can't see you. Usually if we were to take a curtain call, we would be able to see the audience, And yes, once more to say to you all that we miss you. Come back to the theatres as soon as they open again. And thank you for watching.
Thank you so much.